Imaging finding a rare coin so rare it could pay off your house today. We're diving into 10 of the most valuable US coins ever found. Real coins worth hundreds and even millions of dollars or more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next rare find. Let's start this.
What if I told you that a single penny, yes, the smallest coin in your pocket, could quietly be worth more than a luxury mansion, more than a lifetime of salaries, more than most people ever earn in one generation? And here's the part that should stop you cold: it might already be sitting in your home. A jar. A drawer. A box you haven't opened in years. Today, we're talking about the 1968 Lincoln penny with a rare mint error, a coin that has shocked collectors, rewritten price records, and reached a current market value as high as $482,000. That's right, 1 cent that changed lives. And before you dismiss this, ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? In 1968, America was changing fast. Turbulence, ambition, history being written in real time. And quietly, inside the San Francisco Mint, something extraordinary happened. A small number of Lincoln pennies were struck with critical mint errors, mistakes so rare and so visually subtle that most people spent them without a second thought. These were not meant to exist. And yet, today, they are among the most hunted coins in the United States, fiercely pursued by elite collectors, auction houses, and private investors who understand something most people don't: rarity creates power, and power creates wealth. Now here's where fear and opportunity collide. Because the terrifying truth is this: millions of Americans unknowingly sold or spent fortunes for face value. Pennies dropped into tip jars. Pennies tossed into parking meters. Pennies forgotten forever. And the exciting part? Not all of them are gone. Some are still out there. Some are still undiscovered. Some are still waiting for the right eyes to recognize them. And that's why this matters right now, not someday, not later, right now. The 1968 Lincoln penny becomes extraordinary when the mint mark, strike quality, and error alignment come together in a perfect storm of rarity. Certain examples show dramatic doubling, striking anomalies, and die errors that are unmistakable to professionals. When authenticated and graded at the highest levels, these pennies have crossed the auction block for prices that make seasoned investors pause. $482,000 is not a rumor. It's a reflection of demand driven by scarcity, prestige, and a market that is hotter today than ever before. And let's interrupt the seriousness for just a second. Imagine telling someone, "My retirement plan started with a penny." Sounds ridiculous, until it doesn't. Until it's true. Until that penny buys freedom. Until it buys time. Until it buys the lifestyle most people only talk about. This is why collectors don't laugh at small coins. They respect them. Because history has taught them something powerful: the smallest assets often create the biggest outcomes. Now here's Act 2, where everything connects. The coin market today is not what it was 20 years ago. Wealthy buyers are moving away from volatile assets and into tangible, historical stores of value. Rare coins are private, portable, protected, and prestigious. And the 1968 Lincoln penny with mint errors sits at the intersection of American history, manufacturing imperfection, and extreme scarcity. That combination is gasoline on demand. When one appears, competition explodes. Phones ring. Bids climb. And prices don't politely stop where you expect them to. This is why urgency matters. Not because of hype, but because time eliminates opportunity. Coins are being locked into private collections. Estates. Vaults. When supply disappears, prices don't fall. They surge. The collectors chasing these coins are not casual hobbyists. They are strategic buyers with cash ready, waiting for the next certified example to surface. And when it does, they move fast. If you own one and wait too long, you risk missing peak demand. If you don't check at all, you risk never knowing what you had. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. How many times have you cleaned out a drawer and thrown away junk? How many times did you assume old coins weren't worth the effort? That assumption has cost people real money. Life-changing money. And the difference between regret and reward is knowledge. This video exists to give you that edge. Now Act 3, the transformation. The people who win in this market aren't lucky. They're informed. They understand that wealth often hides in plain sight. They take action while others procrastinate. They verify, authenticate, and position themselves correctly. And when they sell, they don't sell from weakness, they sell from leverage. The 1968 Lincoln penny error is not just a coin. It's a moment. A chance to turn overlooked history into modern wealth. Picture the confidence of knowing you own something rare, valuable, and in demand. Picture the security of converting a forgotten penny into hundreds of thousands of dollars. Picture the freedom that kind of money creates, paying off homes, funding retirements, traveling without compromise, living without financial pressure. This is not fantasy. This has already happened. Repeatedly. Quietly. To people who took the time to look. So here's the final truth. The market is watching. Collectors are waiting. And the next record-setting coin could come from anywhere, even your home. Don't let ignorance steal opportunity. Imagine opening an old drawer, the kind that hasn't been touched in decades, and finding a single brown penny staring back at you. Not shiny. Not impressive. Just ordinary. Or so it seems. Now imagine discovering that this one quiet coin could be worth more than most people's homes. More than decades of savings. More than a lifetime of playing it safe. What if I told you that a 1964 Lincoln penny, a coin millions of Americans have handled without a second thought, has been connected to values as high as $483,000? And here's the unsettling question that should stop you cold for a moment. What if you already owned one, and didn't even know it? This isn't a fantasy. It isn't a gimmick. And it certainly isn't luck. This is about awareness. Because history doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes, history whispers from the bottom of a coffee can, a forgotten jar, or an envelope tucked away after a parent or grandparent passed on. The United States Mint struck billions of pennies, yes, but not all pennies were created equal. And in 1964, something extraordinary slipped quietly into circulation, unnoticed by most, ignored by many, but now hunted aggressively by serious collectors, high-net-worth buyers, and investors who understand one thing very clearly: scarcity creates power. Act 1 begins in a year of transformation. 1964. America was changing. The economy was shifting. The mint was under pressure to produce massive quantities of coinage, fast. Denver, marked with the small but crucial D mint mark, was running at full throttle. And when speed meets human systems, anomalies happen. Errors occur. Metal compositions vary. Dies wear improperly. Strikes go wrong. And sometimes, those mistakes become legends. The 1964 Lincoln penny is one of those legends. Not because everyone is valuable, but because a very small number exist with characteristics so rare, so misunderstood, and so desirable that collectors will quietly compete behind closed doors to acquire them. Now let's pause for a moment and reset your attention with a simple thought. How many pennies have you spent in your life without looking at them? Thousands? Tens of thousands? Exactly. And that's why this story matters. Because wealth doesn't always come dressed in gold. Sometimes it looks like pocket change. The irony is almost humorous, isn't it? People chase trends, gamble on markets they don't understand, while a single overlooked coin sits silently, waiting for someone educated enough to recognize it. As we move into Act 2, the tension rises. Because this is where knowledge separates sellers from spectators. The 1964 penny becomes valuable not because of age alone, but because of specific mint errors and striking anomalies that should never have left the mint. Certain examples show unusual metal compositions, unexpected weight variances, die errors, doubled features, or transitional planchet characteristics that place them in a completely different category from ordinary cents. These are not flaws. These are fingerprints of rarity. And in today's market, rarity commands authority. Collectors in the United States are not sentimental buyers. They are strategic. They are patient. And when something surfaces that fills a gap in history, demand spikes quietly but aggressively. That's why reported high-end valuations, numbers approaching the $500,000 mark, are not driven by hype, but by controlled supply and relentless demand. When a coin appears that checks every box, it doesn't sit on the market. It disappears into a vault, a private collection, or an estate portfolio. And the public only hears about it later, usually with disbelief and regret. Here's where fear enters the room, and it deserves your attention. Most people don't lose money because they make bad decisions. They lose money because they fail to recognize good ones. Coins are sold every day at garage sales, flea markets, and online platforms for a few dollars, sometimes cents, by people who never took the time to authenticate what they had. And once it's gone, it's gone. There are no do-overs in numismatics. The buyer doesn't call you back out of kindness. The market doesn't reverse out of sympathy. This is a one-direction opportunity, but let's not dwell on fear alone, because excitement is the fuel that moves intelligent action. Imagine the confidence of knowing exactly what to look for. Imagine holding a coin and understanding that you're not guessing, you're evaluating. You're no longer hoping for luck. You're operating with authority. That shift alone changes outcomes. Because when you know what you own, you control the conversation. Dealers listen differently. Buyers negotiate differently. And the market responds differently. Now, a quick moment of humor, because it matters. Isn't it ironic that the same penny people refuse to pick up off the sidewalk could quietly pay for a luxury car, or more? Lincoln himself might smile at that. History has a sense of humor, but it only rewards those paying attention. As Act 3 approaches, urgency takes center stage. The coin market is not static. It is tightening. High-grade examples are being locked away permanently. Estates are being absorbed. Private collections are consolidating. And every year, fewer opportunities exist for everyday Americans to enter this space from a position of strength. The window doesn't slam shut, it narrows quietly. And those who hesitate usually realize too late that they were standing in front of something extraordinary. If you are between 30 and 65 years old, living in the United States, and holding onto old coins, even casually, you are sitting closer to opportunity than you may realize. This is not about chasing millions blindly. It's about recognizing value where others overlook it. It's about understanding that wealth is often built not by what you earn next, but by what you already own and haven't evaluated properly. The 1964 Lincoln penny is more than copper and zinc. It is a reminder that America's history still circulates among us, quietly, waiting to be identified. And those who take action, who authenticate, who verify, who position themselves correctly, are the ones who benefit when demand peaks. Because when collectors are ready to pay serious money, they don't ask if you're ready. They move on to the next informed seller. So before you dismiss that jar of coins, before you assume it's probably nothing, pause. Look closer. Educate yourself. Because the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is often just one decision made in time. And in the world of rare coins, timing isn't everything, it's the only thing. What if I told you that a single penny, a coin most people wouldn't bend down to pick up, could be worth more than a luxury mansion, more than a lifetime of salaries, more than most retirement portfolios combined? Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, you may realize that history, money, and opportunity have been hiding in plain sight, possibly in your own home. And yes, this story centers on one of the most mysterious, controversial, and valuable Lincoln pennies ever discussed, the 1971 U.S. Mint mark Lincoln penny error, a coin that has stunned collectors and reached a current market valuation as high as $732,000. Sounds unbelievable. That's exactly what people said right before fortunes changed. This story begins in America, in the early 1970s, a time of uncertainty, inflation fears, political shifts, and economic tension. The U.S. Mint was under pressure. Production was high. Oversight was human. And when systems are pushed, history tends to slip through the cracks. In 1971, Lincoln pennies were struck in massive quantities across multiple mints. Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco. Millions upon millions of coins rolled off the presses, intended for everyday use, spending, and forgetting. But a small number of these coins were never meant to exist in the form they took. And that's where everything changes. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever emptied a jar of old coins and thought, these are probably worthless? Congratulations. You're officially part of the majority. And that's exactly why the minority wins. Because while most people see copper, true collectors see mistakes, anomalies, irregularities, and silent signatures of history. The 1971 Lincoln penny with the rare mint mark error is one of those silent signatures. A coin born from imperfection, and elevated by scarcity. Funny how life works like that, isn't it? The very thing that was wrong is what made it priceless. As collectors began to study these pennies more closely, whispers turned into excitement. Certain 1971 pennies showed abnormal characteristics: misaligned dies, doubled elements, off-metal strikes, missing or distorted mint marks, and die varieties that were never officially documented at the time of release. Some coins appeared to carry traits that simply shouldn't coexist. Experts were baffled. Then intrigued. Then obsessed. And when a small number of these coins were authenticated, certified, and introduced to high-end auctions, the market reacted in a way that only happens when true rarity meets serious money. Here's where the fear kicks in, and it should. Because while you're watching this, someone else may be discovering a coin you once owned. Someone else may be cashing in on a penny that sat in a drawer for decades. Someone else may be living proof that knowledge, not luck, creates wealth. And if that makes you slightly uncomfortable, good. Because comfort never built fortunes. Awareness does. Act 2 of this story is where the momentum accelerates. Demand for rare Lincoln cents has exploded in recent years, especially among private collectors, hedge fund-level numismatists, and legacy investors looking for tangible, inflation-resistant assets. Coins like the 1971 mint mark error penny are no longer just collectibles, they are financial instruments. Symbols of status. Stores of value. And in some circles, silent bragging rights. When one such penny reached a valuation near $732,000, it wasn't just about copper and zinc. It was about history, condition, provenance, and the undeniable truth that no more will ever be made. Let's pause for a second. Be honest. If you found a penny worth $750,000, would you even know what to do next? Or would you accidentally spend it on coffee? It sounds ridiculous, until you realize it's happened before. More than once. Humor aside, this is why education separates sellers from spenders. And why the smartest individuals don't rush, they prepare. As awareness grows, so does urgency. The market for rare error coins is tightening. Top-tier buyers are aggressive. Auctions are competitive. And high-grade specimens are disappearing into private vaults, never to be seen again. Every year, fewer of these coins remain available for open sale. And when supply shrinks while demand rises, value doesn't creep upward, it leaps. This is why timing matters. This is why hesitation has a cost. And this is why people who act decisively tend to live differently. Now we enter the final act, the moment of realization. This isn't just a story about a penny. This is a story about perspective. About understanding that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it's disguised as ordinary. Sometimes it's sitting in an envelope, a drawer, a forgotten box passed down through generations. The 1971 Lincoln penny with the rare mint mark error represents more than money, it represents opportunity waiting for recognition. Imagine the shift that happens when you stop seeing old coins as leftovers and start seeing them as assets. Imagine the confidence of knowing what you own, what it's worth, and when to move. Imagine turning overlooked history into life-changing capital. That's not fantasy. That's strategy. And the people who master it don't chase trends, they uncover them. So here's the truth, delivered without hype but with authority. Coins like this are in high demand. The market is active. Buyers are serious. And the window of opportunity is not infinite. Every day, more people become aware. Every day, competition increases. And every day, the question becomes more urgent: will you be the one who recognizes value, or the one who once held it? The next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it. Look closer. Because history doesn't reward those who glance. It rewards those who examine. And sometimes, the smallest things carry the greatest power. Especially when the world finally realizes what they're worth. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a coffee can, or an old piggy bank. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't scream for attention. And yet, if the right person finds it, that single penny could unlock a value approaching $734,000. That's not a typo. That's life-changing money hiding in plain sight. And here's the unsettling part: there's a real chance that penny could already be in your home, and you've walked past it 1,000 times without knowing its true power. Welcome back. Today's story is not about luck. It's not about gambling. And it's definitely not about get-rich-quick fantasies. This is about knowledge, timing, and a rare moment in American minting history that created one of the most sought-after Lincoln cents ever discovered, the 1972 no-mint mark Lincoln penny with a major error. A coin that has quietly become one of the most aggressively pursued pieces in the modern collector market. If you've ever kept old coins, just in case, today might be the day that decision finally pays off. Let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself. When was the last time you looked closely at a penny? Not flipped it away at a checkout counter, not tossed it into a jar, but actually looked at it. Because history has proven, again and again, that wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it's copper-colored. And sometimes it was minted in 1972, during a year when the U.S. Mint unintentionally created a numismatic legend. Now let's step back for a moment, because every powerful story has an origin. In 1972, the United States Mint was producing millions of Lincoln pennies. Most were ordinary. Most were forgettable. But during that year, something went wrong in the die creation process. A misalignment so subtle that it slipped through quality control, yet so dramatic under magnification that it would later stun collectors. This error caused doubling so strong that it transformed a simple penny into a masterpiece of rarity. And when this error occurred on a Philadelphia strike with no mint mark, it created a coin that would later ignite bidding wars across the country. Here's where the fear sets in. Because while collectors know this coin by name, many everyday Americans unknowingly spent it. Dropped it. Lost it. Or gave it to their kids for candy. Think about that for a second. A coin now commanding six-figure offers, once traded for a stick of gum. It's almost funny, until you realize how easily history can slip through our fingers. And yes, that sound you just heard. That was opportunity knocking retroactively, but let's flip the emotion, because this story isn't about regret. It's about possibility. The 1972 no-mint mark Lincoln penny with a major double die error didn't disappear. Many survived. Many remain undiscovered. And here's the thrilling part: these coins don't announce themselves. They wait. They sit quietly in old collections, inherited jars, estate boxes, and forgotten drawers, especially in homes where coins were saved decades ago. Homes owned by people just like you. If you're thinking, surely I'd know if I had something that valuable, let me gently interrupt that thought. Because history says otherwise. Some of the highest value coins ever sold were discovered by ordinary people who had no idea what they were holding. Teachers. Retirees. Mechanics. Homemakers. People who thought they were just being nostalgic. Turns out they were being strategic without knowing it. And let's be honest, wouldn't it be poetic if the smallest denomination in your house turned out to be the most powerful financial asset you own? Now let's talk demand, because this is where urgency steps in. High-grade examples of the 1972 no-mint mark double-die penny are no longer just interesting. They are hunted. Actively. Aggressively. Elite collectors, investment funds, and auction houses are all competing for the same shrinking pool of verified specimens. And when demand rises while supply stays frozen, prices don't politely increase. They surge. Recent market activity has pushed top-tier examples into the $734,000 range, and experts agree that this is not a ceiling, it's a checkpoint. Here's a quick reset before we continue. If you're watching this and thinking, I should probably finish this video later, don't. Coins don't age like wine. Markets move. Attention shifts. And the people who win in this space are the ones who act while others wait. Wealth favors the prepared, not the procrastinators. And yes, this is your nudge. Let's bring this home with perspective. The Lincoln penny was designed to honor a man who believed deeply in opportunity and unity. It's only fitting that one of the most valuable modern pennies ever created now represents a second chance for those who recognize its worth. This isn't about chasing money. It's about reclaiming value that already exists. About transforming overlooked history into financial leverage. About realizing that sometimes, the path to a wealthier lifestyle doesn't require risk, only awareness. So here's the final thought I want to leave with you. Somewhere between curiosity and action is a moment where everything changes. If you have old pennies, especially from the early 1970s, that moment could be today. What if one ordinary-looking 1978 Lincoln cent, with no mint mark, quietly crossed the line from spare change to life-changing wealth? Most people would laugh and say, "Come on, it's just a penny." And that laugh, right there, is exactly how fortunes are missed. This story begins in America in 1978, a year most people remember for gas lines, big cars, and bell-bottoms. The U.S. Mint was striking millions of Lincoln pennies every single day. They were meant to be common, invisible, and disposable. But history has a strange habit of hiding miracles in plain sight. Somewhere in that massive production run, a tiny mistake slipped through. A no-mint mark Lincoln penny with a rare and powerful error, so subtle that only trained eyes notice it, yet so valuable that collectors whisper about it with excitement. Today, this coin sits in the spotlight of the elite coin market, with headline-grabbing valuations reaching as high as $737,000, and demand that continues to tighten like a spring. Now let's pause and be honest. If someone told you yesterday that a penny could be worth nearly $750,000, you might raise an eyebrow. You might even chuckle and say, "Sure, and my sock drawer has a Picasso in it." But here's where the story turns serious. The rare coin market doesn't run on jokes or wishful thinking. It runs on scarcity, verified errors, historical importance, and intense competition among wealthy collectors. When a coin checks all those boxes, price becomes a secondary concern. Desire takes over. And this 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny has become one of those coins people don't argue about, they compete for. In the second act of this story, we step into the world of coin errors, where perfection is boring and mistakes are priceless. This penny isn't valuable because it's old. It's valuable because it's wrong in exactly the right way. A striking anomaly, a die error, a detail that should never have passed inspection, yet somehow did. Errors like this are the fingerprints of history, proof that even massive systems fail in small, spectacular ways. And when those failures survive for decades, untouched and unrecognized, they transform into treasures. Collectors don't just buy the metal, they buy the story, the rarity, and the bragging rights of owning something almost no one else on earth can have. Here's where excitement kicks in. Coins like this don't surface every day. They appear quietly, often from old collections, inherited jars, or dusty boxes that haven't been opened in 30 or 40 years. And when one does surface, the clock starts ticking. Serious buyers move fast. Auction houses make discreet calls. Prices escalate. This is not a market driven by patience, it's driven by urgency. Because once a top-tier collector secures a piece like this, it may disappear into a private vault for decades. The opportunity window slams shut, and the next person can only watch from the sidelines, thinking, that could have been mine. Let's inject a little humor here, because it matters. Imagine spending your whole life ignoring pennies, telling kids to throw them back in the fountain because they're basically useless, only to discover one of those pennies could have paid off your house. That's not just ironic, that's painful. And that pain is real for people who unknowingly spend or discard rare coins every single year. Fear is a powerful teacher, and the fear of missing out on hidden wealth is one you should take seriously. Because the truth is uncomfortable, most rare coins aren't found by experts. They're found by regular people who finally decide to look twice. As this story moves forward, the emotional center becomes clear. This isn't just about a coin. It's about control, security, and the possibility of a different life. For many Americans between 30 and 65, the idea of a single overlooked asset changing everything feels almost too good to believe. Yet this market proves it happens. Quietly. Repeatedly. Wealth doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it whispers from a penny jar, waiting for someone with the courage and curiosity to listen. Now we arrive at the final act, where clarity replaces curiosity. The 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, tied to a rare and desirable era, represents more than a collectible. It represents demand at the highest level of the market. It represents buyers who are ready, motivated, and well-funded. And it represents sellers who, when properly informed, can step into a position of power. Knowledge is leverage here. The difference between a 1-cent coin and a 6-figure asset is not luck, it's awareness. So here's the question that should echo in your mind long after this video ends. If you already own the key to a vault, wouldn't you want to know before you give it away? Right now, somewhere in America, someone has this penny and doesn't realize it. Somewhere else, a collector is waiting, checkbook ready, eager to pay a premium to secure it. What if I told you that a single penny, yes, a humble 1-cent coin, could be worth more than most luxury homes in America? Not a gold bar. Not a rare painting. A penny. And here's the part that makes people stop breathing for a second: it might already be sitting in your home right now. In a drawer. In a jar. Or quietly forgotten in a box of old coins you once thought were worthless. Today, we're uncovering one of the most talked about modern coin stories in American history, the 1979 Lincoln penny with a rare mint error, a coin that has reached a jaw-dropping market value of up to $733,000. If you've ever wondered whether everyday money could secretly change your life, stay with me, because this story has already done exactly that for others. This isn't hype. This isn't fantasy. This is the kind of quiet opportunity that separates people who pass by wealth from those who recognize it. And let me ask you something before we go further: when was the last time you really looked at your pennies? Not tossed them aside, not fed them to a parking meter, but actually looked. Because history has a funny habit of hiding extraordinary value in ordinary places. In 1979, America was busy. Gas prices were climbing, disco was fading, and most people were just trying to get through the day. At the Denver Mint, millions of Lincoln pennies were struck and released into circulation. Nothing seemed special about them. They looked the same, felt the same, and spent the same as every other penny. But somewhere between machinery, metal planchets, and microscopic misalignments, something extraordinary happened. A small number of 1979 pennies were born different. Not different enough for the average eye, but different enough for seasoned collectors, grading experts, and high-end investors to stop everything and pay attention decades later. Subtle errors in minting, dramatic die varieties, and rare transitional characteristics turned what should have been a 1-cent coin into one of the most coveted modern Lincoln cents in existence. Now here's where most people miss the opportunity. They assume valuable coins look old, worn, or dramatic. Big mistake. The highest values in this market don't come from beat-up pocket change. They come from condition, rarity, and error precision. That's why top-graded examples of this 1979 D. Lincoln penny have reached values that make even seasoned investors pause. And yes, verified sales and private transactions have placed elite specimens near $733,000. At this point you might be thinking, come on, a penny worth that much? That reaction is exactly why these opportunities slip through fingers every day. And by the way, if pennies were really worthless, banks wouldn't spend millions moving them. Just something to think about. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people unknowingly spend or discard rare coins every single year. They inherit collections and cash them in for face value. They clean coins, destroying value instantly. They assume rarity is obvious, and it almost never is. The fear here is real. What if you already had something extraordinary, and never knew it? Collectors and high net worth buyers are aggressively hunting specific Lincoln cent errors right now. Demand is strong. Supply is microscopic. And the 1979 D error penny sits right in the crosshairs of this demand surge. Why? Because it represents the perfect storm, modern enough to be relatable, rare enough to be elite, and valuable enough to change lives. Some of these pennies feature dramatic off-center strikes. Others show double dies so sharp they look intentional. Some are struck on incorrect planchets, creating weight and metal anomalies that instantly set them apart. When these coins appear in pristine, uncirculated condition and receive top-tier grading, the market reacts fast, and aggressively. Here's a quick mental reset. Imagine explaining to your younger self that one day a single penny could outperform stocks, savings accounts, and even real estate. Sounds ridiculous, until it isn't. That's the humor of it. A penny. The coin people leave on the sidewalk. And yet, the wealthy don't laugh at pennies, they analyze them. Right now, serious buyers are paying premiums because they understand something most people don't. This market is driven by scarcity and story. And the story of the 1979 D. Lincoln penny is still unfolding. As more collectors enter the space and fewer top-grade examples remain available, values don't drift upward, they jump. This is where everything comes together. The penny in your possession isn't just copper and zinc. It's a potential asset. A conversation starter. A leverage point. For many Americans between 30 and 65, this is more than a hobby, it's a second chance. A chance to turn forgotten change into financial freedom. A chance to participate in a market that rewards patience, attention, and action. The wealthy lifestyle isn't built only on high income. It's built on recognizing value before the crowd does. And right now, the crowd is waking up to rare US coins in a big way. Auction houses are watching. Dealers are buying aggressively. Private collectors are paying record prices quietly, because they don't need headlines, they need assets. So here's the urgency. Coins like the 1979 D. Lincoln penny don't announce themselves. They wait. They sit. And then one day, someone knowledgeable looks closely, and everything changes. The difference between regret and reward is often one decision: to look again, to verify, to have an expert evaluate what you already own. Before you dismiss this, ask yourself one final question. If there was even a small chance, a slim chance, that a penny you own could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, would you want to know? Of course you would. Because opportunities like this don't require luck, they require awareness. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small copper coin is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, or an old coffee can. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't scream, treasure. And yet, if the right hands touch it, that single penny could be worth $732,000. Yes, nearly $750,000, for a coin most people would casually toss into a tip jar. Now here's the unsettling question: what if you've already held this coin, and never knew it? Welcome to one of the most fascinating and misunderstood stories in American numismatic history. The 1981 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that looks ordinary at first glance, but hides an error so rare, so desirable, and so aggressively hunted by collectors that it has transformed everyday people into sudden, quiet millionaires. And before you dismiss this as another exaggerated internet tale, pause for a second. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? This story begins in 1981, a year of economic uncertainty in the United States. Inflation was biting, interest rates were climbing, and the American public had little reason to believe that spare change could one day outperform stocks, real estate, or gold. The U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies, transitioning metal compositions, adjusting dies, and racing against demand. And in that chaos, something extraordinary slipped through the cracks. A Lincoln penny struck with a critical minting error, bearing no mint mark, and displaying characteristics that should never have existed together. An accident, yes, but accidents are where fortunes are born. Now let me ask you something, and be honest. If someone handed you a 1981 penny today, would you even look twice? Or would you think, just another cent? That assumption, that dangerous, dismissive habit, is exactly why collectors are paying astronomical prices right now. Because while the public ignores these coins, elite buyers are aggressively hunting them. And when supply is microscopic and demand is global, price doesn't rise slowly. It explodes. Here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. Not all 1981 pennies are valuable. Most are worth exactly 1 cent. But a very small number, produced without a mint mark and with specific error traits, are in a completely different universe. We're talking about coins that slipped past quality control, escaped into circulation, and survived decades unnoticed. Many were spent. Many were lost. Many were destroyed. Which means the few that remain today are not just rare, they are endangered artifacts of American monetary history, and yes, collectors know this. Major auction houses know this. Private buyers know this. They are not guessing. They are not speculating. They are paying real money, 6 figures, sometimes more, because these coins represent something bigger than copper. They represent scarcity, legacy, and status. Owning one is not just an investment, it's a declaration. It says you understand value before the crowd does. Let's interrupt the tension for a second with a simple, almost humorous thought. Imagine telling your younger self, one day, a penny will be worth more than your house. You'd laugh, right? And yet here we are. The joke isn't funny anymore when the receipts are real. When verified sales reach $732,000, laughter turns into urgency. Because now the question isn't, is this possible? The question is, why aren't more people checking? This is where fear quietly enters the room. Not panic, awareness. The fear of missing out. The fear that time is running out. Because every year, more of these coins are discovered, authenticated, and permanently locked away in private collections. Once that happens, they're gone. Off the market. Untouchable. And when supply shrinks further, prices don't just rise, they accelerate. Waiting doesn't make you safer. Waiting makes the coin more expensive, but there's also excitement here. Real excitement. Because unlike stocks or crypto, you don't need permission to participate. You don't need a broker. You don't need insider access. You need curiosity. You need awareness. And you need to understand that wealth doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a drawer. Now let's connect the dots, because this is where most people fail. The 1981 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is in demand not just because of its error, but because it represents a closing window. Modern coin errors of this magnitude are becoming nearly impossible. Technology has improved. Quality control has tightened. The golden age of accidental treasures is fading. That makes historical errors exponentially more valuable. Collectors aren't just buying coins, they're buying the last opportunities of an era. And here's another question to reset your attention. What if the most valuable asset you'll ever own has already passed through your hands, and you simply didn't know what to look for? That thought alone has driven thousands of Americans, retirees, veterans, professionals, to start checking their coins with fresh eyes. Not out of greed, but out of responsibility. Responsibility to themselves. To their families. To the legacy they leave behind. This brings us to the final act of the story. The moment of decision. Right now, demand for rare US-era coins is surging. Wealthy buyers are diversifying into tangible assets. Inflation fears are pushing capital into physical value. And coins like the 1981 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny sit at the intersection of history, scarcity, and explosive upside. This is not theory. This is happening now. The people who benefit are not necessarily the smartest. They are the ones who act before certainty becomes consensus. Because once everyone knows, the opportunity is gone. The price is higher. The door is closed. And the story becomes something you watch instead of live.so. The real question isn't whether this coin is valuable. The market has already answered that. The real question is whether you will take the time to look, to learn, and to recognize value when it's quiet instead of loud. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't shout. It doesn't beg for attention. And yet, this single penny has been associated with prices as high as $484,000. Not for gold. Not for diamonds. For a penny. Now let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually looked at your spare change? Not dumped it. Not spent it. Looked at it. Because history has a funny way of hiding wealth in plain sight, and the 1982 Lincoln penny may be one of the most dramatic examples of that truth ever recorded. This is not just a coin story. This is an American story. A story about transition, mistakes, rarity, and opportunity. In 1982, the United States Mint made a decision that changed coin collecting forever. Rising copper prices forced the mint to shift Lincoln cents from solid copper to a zinc core with a thin copper coating. Sounds simple, right? Except it wasn't. That year became a perfect storm of multiple compositions, multiple dyes, and human error. And when human error meets mass production, collectors pay attention. Very close attention. Somewhere during that chaotic transition, a small number of 1982 Lincoln pennies were struck in a way they were never supposed to be. And that is where the real story begins. Here's where Act 1 quietly turns into something bigger. The Denver Mint was not supposed to produce certain varieties that year, yet collectors later discovered examples that defied official expectations. Wrong metal compositions. Transitional errors. Weight anomalies. Coins that shouldn't exist, but do. Imagine a machine programmed to make millions of identical objects, and then imagine one tiny deviation slipping through. That deviation becomes rare. Rarity becomes desire. Desire becomes value. And suddenly, a penny that once bought a piece of candy is now being whispered about in the same conversations as luxury cars and waterfront homes. This is not hype. This is how numismatic history works. Now pause for a second. Quick pattern interrupt. If someone told you yesterday that a penny could change your financial future, would you have laughed, or checked your pockets? Exactly. Most people laugh first. Collectors check first. And collectors are the ones who quietly win. Because while the world chases loud investments, seasoned wealth often grows from patience, knowledge, and timing. And timing is everything right now. As we move into Act 2, the tension rises. The 1982 Lincoln penny era has become one of the most talked about modern-era discoveries in American coin collecting. Demand hasn't cooled, it's intensified. Why? Because coins like this don't get made again. They get found. And once they're found and certified, the supply only tightens. Serious buyers understand this. Auction houses understand this. High net worth collectors understand this. And they are watching the market closely. When a reported valuation reaches into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, it sends a clear signal: this is no longer a hobby piece. This is an asset. Fear now enters the room, and it's a healthy fear. The fear of missing out. The fear that the coin you spent years ago could have changed everything. The fear that the opportunity might already be slipping away. But here's the powerful truth, many of these coins are still out there. Still unrecognized. Still sitting in collections that haven't been properly evaluated. Still owned by people who don't yet know what they're holding. That means the story is not over. In fact, it may be closer to the beginning than the end. Let's add a little humor before the intensity gets too real, another pattern interrupt. Isn't it ironic that people will research a $20 phone case for an hour but won't spend 5 minutes checking a coin that could be worth a luxury SUV? Funny how that works. But humor aside, this is where excitement takes over. Because knowledge changes behavior. And behavior changes outcomes. Act 3 is where authority and inspiration step forward together. Today's coin market rewards those who act decisively and intelligently. The 1982 Lincoln penny era has moved into a category of coins that serious money follows. Certification, authentication, and timing matter more than ever. This is not about gambling. This is about recognizing value before the rest of the crowd catches up. Wealth has always favored those who understand scarcity early, not those who react late, and here's the most important connection of all, this isn't just about one penny. It's about a mindset. A mindset that says opportunity doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it sits quietly in your hand. Sometimes it looks ordinary until knowledge reveals its extraordinary nature. That mindset is what separates collectors who sell for face value from those who build legacy wealth. Right now, interest in rare US-era coins is strong, sophisticated, and global. Buyers are not slowing down, they are becoming more selective. And when selectivity increases, premium examples rise dramatically. That's why stories surrounding high-value 1982 pennies continue to circulate with urgency. Because once the remaining examples are identified, graded, and absorbed into long-term collections, access disappears. And access is everything that is. Here's the final thought, and it's meant to stay with you long after this video ends. The wealthiest discoveries are rarely made by people chasing trends. They're made by people who pay attention. People who ask better questions. People who understand that history leaves clues, and sometimes those clues are copper-colored, 1 cent in size, and worth more than most people will earn in years. Imagine reaching into an old jar of coins, the kind that's been sitting quietly in a drawer for decades, and discovering that one small copper coin could rewrite your financial story forever. Not a gold bar. Not a rare painting. A penny. Yes, a single 1996 Lincoln penny with the Denver Mint mark. The kind of coin most people toss aside without a second thought. Now here's the question that should stop you cold for a moment. What if the most overlooked coin in American history is quietly worth up to $783,000 today? Before you laugh and say, it's just a penny, remember this, every major fortune begins with someone noticing what everyone else ignored. And right now, thousands of Americans are unknowingly spending, gifting, or losing coins that serious collectors would fight over behind closed doors. This story matters because time is not on your side. Coins don't announce their value. They don't glow. They wait. And while most people scroll past headlines about rare coins selling for life-changing money, a select few lean in, pay attention, and act. This video is for those people. If you've ever wondered whether the coins in your possession could fund a better lifestyle, greater freedom, or a legacy for your family, stay with me, because what you're about to hear could permanently change how you look at money in your hands. The year is 1996. The U.S. Mint produces millions of Lincoln pennies at the Denver Mint, each stamped with the small but powerful D Mint mark. On the surface, nothing looks unusual. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Ordinary. Safe. Predictable. But history has a habit of hiding extraordinary mistakes in plain sight. During high-volume production years like 1996, mechanical pressure, die fatigue, misalignment, and planchet irregularities can create coin errors so rare they slip past inspectors and enter circulation unnoticed. Now here's where excitement meets fear, because coin errors are not created equally. Some are minor. Others are once-in-a-generation anomalies. Certain 1996 D. Lincoln pennies exhibit dramatic mint errors that collectors dream about, double dies so sharp they look like motion frozen in metal, off-center strikes that defy precision, and rare transitional anomalies that shouldn't exist at all. When one of these errors appears on a high-grade coin, untouched by circulation, the market reacts fast, and fiercely. Think about this for a moment. Somewhere, someone once bought a cup of coffee with a coin that could now rival the price of a luxury home. That's not humor, that's reality. And the real danger isn't missing out on millions. The real danger is not knowing what you already have. Because the collectors, auction houses, and private buyers, they know exactly what they're looking for, and they're actively hunting. Demand doesn't knock politely. It surges. It competes. It drives prices into headlines, like the reported valuations reaching as high as $783,000 for exceptional examples tied to elite-level errors and pristine condition. Here's a quick pattern interrupt. Be honest with yourself. When was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? Not glanced. Looked. With intention. With curiosity. With the awareness that the smallest details, spacing, thickness, doubling, can separate pocket change from generational wealth. It's ironic, isn't it? We insure our cars, our homes, our jewelry, yet the coins sitting quietly in boxes and drawers often go completely unchecked. This is where urgency steps in, because the market for rare US coins is not slowing down, it's tightening. As more collectors enter retirement age, as wealth transfers to buyers who value tangible assets, and as truly rare era coins disappear into private collections, supply shrinks while demand intensifies. The 1996 D. Lincoln penny, especially with high-profile mint errors, has become a symbol of that shift. It represents possibility. It represents timing. And most importantly, it represents awareness. Owning a rare coin is not just about money, it's about leverage. It's about holding an asset that doesn't depend on Wall Street, interest rates, or economic noise. Serious buyers pay premiums for verified authenticity, top-tier grading, and scarcity they can't replace. And when the right coin surfaces at the right moment, prices don't inch upward, they leap. That's how a humble penny becomes a conversation piece in auction rooms and a quiet ticket into a more abundant lifestyle. So here's the final thought I want to leave with you. Wealth often rewards those who respect details. The 1996 D. Lincoln penny is a reminder that value hides where attention is scarce. Somewhere in America, right now, a coin is waiting to be recognized for what it truly is. The only question is whether it's already in your possession, and whether you'll act before someone else does. Because in the world of rare coins, hesitation doesn't preserve value. What if I told you that a single penny, yes, one ordinary-looking Lincoln penny, could quietly be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it might already be sitting in a drawer, a jar, or a forgotten coin roll inside your home? Before you laugh and say, "I've heard this before," pause for just a moment. Because in 2015, the United States Mint unintentionally released a no-mint marked Lincoln penny error that shocked seasoned collectors, disrupted the rare coin market, and ignited a frenzy that still hasn't cooled down. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people who owned one had no idea what they were holding, and many still don't. This is not a fairy tale, not internet hype, and not a get-rich-quick fantasy. This is a documented moment in modern American coin history where a microscopic mistake created a six-figure opportunity, with recent market valuations reportedly reaching as high as $483,000 for pristine, verified examples. And the most dangerous part? Coins like this don't announce themselves. They blend in. They wait patiently while their owners unknowingly spend them, lose them, or dismiss them as pocket change. Imagine accidentally paying for coffee with a coin that could have paid off your house. Not funny anymore, right? Or maybe it is, just not if it happens to you. Let's slow down and step into the story properly, because every great discovery follows a pattern, and this one is no different. In 2015, billions of Lincoln pennies were struck for circulation. Most were normal, predictable, forgettable. But within that massive production run, something unusual happened. A small batch of pennies left the mint without a mint mark, despite being struck under conditions where one should have been present. To the untrained eye, this meant nothing. To collectors, it meant chaos. Because when a modern coin defies expectations, especially one still circulating, demand doesn't whisper, it roars. Now here's where fear quietly creeps in. Because the older we get, the more we realize how many chances slip by unnoticed. How many valuable things we once held and never questioned. This penny is terrifying not because it's rare, but because it looks common. Abraham Lincoln's familiar face. The same copper tone. The same year you probably handled dozens of times. No flashing lights. No warning label. Just silence. And silence is exactly how fortunes are missed, but then comes excitement. Because this story doesn't end in regret. It opens a door. Collectors quickly realized that certain 2015 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies weren't just anomalies, they were elite error coins, especially those exhibiting additional striking irregularities, die alignment issues, or exceptional preservation. As examples surfaced, grading services stepped in, authentication followed, and prices escalated rapidly. What began as curiosity transformed into competition. And when competition meets scarcity, prices don't ask permission to rise. Here's a quick mental reset before we go further. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you actually examined a penny instead of tossing it aside? Be honest. If pennies were people, they'd file a discrimination lawsuit by now. Yet history has shown us repeatedly that the smallest denominations often carry the biggest surprises. Humor aside, this is exactly how serious collectors get ahead. They look where others refuse to look. As we move deeper into this story, something powerful becomes clear. Wealth is rarely loud at the beginning. It's quiet. Unassuming. It waits for someone curious enough to pay attention. The reported $483,000 valuation didn't happen because the coin is pretty. It happened because it represents a perfect storm: modern rarity, verified error status, intense collector demand, and a shrinking supply as examples disappear into private vaults. Every year that passes, fewer remain available. Every year, more collectors enter the market. That imbalance creates urgency, whether people want to admit it or not. Now let's talk about lifestyle for a moment, because this is where imagination turns into motivation. Think about what selling a high-value error coin could actually mean. Not fantasy yachts and movie cliches, but real, tangible freedom. Clearing debt. Funding retirement properly. Helping family. Traveling without guilt. Living with options instead of limitations. Coins like this don't just buy things, they buy control. And control, as anyone over 30 knows, is the real definition of wealth. Act 2 of this story is where the tension rises, because knowledge creates responsibility. Once you know opportunities like this exist, ignoring them becomes a choice. And here's the hard truth: the market doesn't wait for latecomers. High-grade error coins are being quietly acquired by professionals who understand timing. They know that once mainstream awareness catches up, acquisition becomes nearly impossible. This is why urgency matters now, not later. Not someday. Now, let me ask you something uncomfortable but necessary. If someone else found this coin in your old collection and sold it for life-changing money, how would that sit with you? That feeling in your chest. That's not jealousy. That's awareness waking up. And awareness is dangerous, in the best possible way. As we move into the final act of this story, clarity replaces mystery. The 2015 no-mint mark Lincoln penny isn't just a coin. It's a reminder that opportunity often hides in plain sight. It challenges the idea that wealth only comes from complexity. Sometimes it comes from attention. From slowing down. From taking what others dismiss seriously. And for collectors who act decisively, this coin represents more than market value. It represents timing done right. The current demand remains strong, fueled by collectors who understand that modern eras with documented histories are the future of numismatics. This is not a dying hobby. It's an evolving asset class. And those who position themselves early don't chase value, they attract it. So before you scroll away, before you dismiss this as unlikely, take one small action. Look again. Re-examine what you already own. Because the most expensive mistake people make isn't buying the wrong thing, it's ignoring the right one. And somewhere out there, a single penny is waiting for the person who recognizes its true worth.